What's up guys, Perry from Rockville here, and today I'm going to show you what each control does on the channels for your RPM870. Underneath the line inputs we have the inserts so we can set up effects through specific channels. So for example, if I wanted to set up a compressor to channel 1, I would take a Y cable and plug the single end into the insert of channel 1, then plug the other ends into the inputs and outputs of the compressor, and then from there I can set my compressor and have it only affecting channel 1. So like we mentioned before, we have the gain knob to set the input level for anything coming into our mixer like our microphone, line, or instrument. And if we had something with a high input like a condenser microphone plugged into any of these channels, we can use the pad button to lower that signal by 25 dB. Below that we have the EQ section so we can control the high, mid, and low frequencies. So the high frequency knob will control all of the treble coming out of our channel. So for example, if I lowered it, check 1 2, check 1 2, you won't hear much of that top end coming out. And if I raised it all the way up, check 1 2, check 1 2, check 1 2, you can hear a lot more of that presence. And then we can set it back to the middle, check 1 2, for a nice balance. We also got the high mid that we can use to increase the presence. So if I raise that, check 1 2, check 1 2, you'll hear it a little clearer. I can also lower it, check 1 2, and then again it won't be as present. Next we have the low mid to control more of the low end frequency of the mid range. So if I lower it, check 1 2, check 1 2, you're gonna hear a little less body coming out. And if I raise it, check 1 2, check 1 2, sounds a little boxier. And lastly, we have the low knob to control the bass coming out of our voice. So if I lower it, check 1 2, check 1 2, you won't hear it coming out as boomy. Then I could raise it, check 1 2, check 1 2, and now there's a lot more bass coming out of my voice. Next we have the send knob that we can use with external effects that we set up through the send and return. So for example, I can set up a compressor to the send and return for my mixer here, so that this way it can be used with all of the different channels on our mixer. Then I'm going to want to raise the main send knob here so that everything coming through the mixer is being sent to the compressor. Then I'm going to want to raise the return knob to send the signal back to the mixer. And then from there, if we want the compressor to affect channel 1, we're going to raise the send knob here for channel 1. Underneath we have the effects knob to use the built-in effects of the mixer. And then we have different effects to choose from by using the effects processor here on top. So for example, we have different reverbs we can choose from using the preset selector here. I can use it to select it to any of these presets. So for example, I'm going to set it to preset 4. Then I'm going to use this effects knob here to set the overall level of the effect. I'm also going to want to raise the effects fader here. And then to use the effect with channel 1 specifically, I'm going to raise the effects knob on channel 1. We can also use the parameter 1 and parameter 2 knobs to set the specifics for the effect. For example, while we're using preset 4, we can use parameter 1 for the time of the reverb and parameter 2 for the dampening of the reverb. So once we have that all set, we can raise the effects knob on the channel. Check 1 2, check 1 2, and now you'll be hearing some reverb on my voice. We also got different effect presets, so I can switch it over to 13 for the chorus. Check 1 2, so now you'll be able to hear the chorus coming through my voice. And with this preset, we can use parameter 1 to affect the time of the chorus. Check 1 2, check 1 2. And parameter 2 to affect the feedback. So check 1 2, check 1 2, you hear it a little more. And then if I turn it the other way, check 1 2, check 1 2, you hear it a little less. Another example is preset 14, where we can use parameter 1 to affect the rate. Check 1 2, check 1 2. And parameter 2 to affect the depth. Check 1 2, check 1 2, check 1 2, check 1 2. So we have a lot of different options with the effects processor, so feel free to experiment with the different presets and the parameters so you can really morph the sound. Underneath the effects knob, we have the pan knob to send the signal either more to the left channel or the right channel. So for example, if I set the pan to the left, check 1 2, check 1 2, you'll only be able to hear my voice coming out of the left channel. And if I set it to the right, check 1 2, check 1 2, you'll hear my voice coming out of the right channel. Below we have the mute button, so we can mute the channel altogether. So I'm talking right now, check 1 2, and if I press mute, check 1 2, you won't be able to hear my voice coming through the microphone anymore. Then we can unmute it, check 1, 2, and then you'll be able to hear my voice again. Next to the fader, we also have the solo button to solo specific channels. So if I had multiple microphones plugged into channels 1, 2, and 3, and only wanted to hear the vocal from channel 1, I can press the solo button and only hear everything coming from channel 1. And lastly, we have the fader to set the level coming out of the channels. So if I lower the fader, check 1, 2, check 1, 2, you won't be able to hear it. And then the more I raise it, check 1, 2, check 1, 2, the more you'll be able to hear. Now these controls are going to work the same exact way for channels 1 through 6. And then we have channels 7 and 8, which work independently because it's only used for the MP3 module. So if you had your Bluetooth or USB device connected to the mixer, you're going to use channels 7 and 8 to control the volume with the fader. You can also mute it using the mute button. And then above you also have a 2-band EQ with the high and low knob so you can morph the sound a little bit. So hopefully this showed you all of the different controls and what they do on each channel of your RPM870. But of course, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to reach out to our customer support team through phone or email. As always, I'm Perry from Rockville, and we'll see you guys next time.